Hey guys, welcome back to Science. So today we are starting on page 46. It starts at imbalance, so go ahead and get there. Let's go over our vocabulary first. Our first word is native species, a species in its natural habitat. So it's the animals that are supposed to be where they are. Then we have a foreign species, and that is a species that is not native to a habitat. So for instance, a native species in, say, Alaska would be a moose. It's cool up there. Moose need a place with a lot of trees, a lot of water, and a cold place because they've got really thick fur. But if you plucked up a moose from Alaska and brought them to Arizona, they would not be very happy. They'd be way too hot. They don't have the right food that they need to eat, so it would be a foreign species in Arizona if a moose was just walking around here, all right? So that is a foreign species. Then we have poaching, the illegal killing or removal of organisms from their ecosystems, all right? And then pollution, the introduction of poisons or garbage into an ecosystem. So it's things that are not normally in an ecosystem that have been introduced and are bad and harmful for that ecosystem. And then we have deforestation, the removal of most or all trees from a forest. So let's look at that word deforestation. You can kind of hear the word forest in deforestation. So it's taking all of the trees or most of the trees from where they are supposed to be, which hurts the ecosystem because, as we know, trees give off oxygen that we need to breathe. And so doing that is very harmful for the ecosystem that they are in. All right, so let's begin. Ecosystems must have all of their living and non-living factors functioning together in order for the system to be in balance. Ecosystems are designed to cope with some imbalances and even to correct them. However, sometimes severe imbalances occur, causing destruction to the ecosystem. Imbalance can be caused by natural disasters like fires and floods, or by human activity. Sometimes native species are harmed when people introduce a foreign species into a habitat. The foreign species can take up space and use the resources that the native species need to survive. This invasion by the foreign species can disrupt the energy flow in a habitat by preventing native species from acquiring the food that they need. Energy flow also becomes unstable when too many members of a species are killed or removed from their habitat. The other organisms that depend on that species may go hungry. So, for instance, let's talk about that. For instance, let's talk about rabbits. So, if too many rabbits are being killed off by people, some people eat rabbits, then we have the bigger animals in the food chain that eat rabbits that are going to go hungry because all of a sudden their food source is gone or it's very scarce. There's not a lot of it there. So we are kind of imbalanced in the ecosystem. If one animal gets killed off or poached too much, then it just throws the whole thing off, throws off the whole food chain. Let's continue. Poaching is an illegal activity that removes an animal from its ecosystem. Some animal species have become extinct due to extreme poaching, so they're no longer living on the earth. They're all gone. Okay, let's look at that parrot caption. It says, poaching does not always involve killing. Some rare animals are removed from their habitats and sold illegally as pets. Okay, so poaching is not always killing them off, but it's taking them from their natural habitat and moving them to somewhere where they're not used to being. Okay, let's continue. Pollution is one way that people cause imbalance in an ecosystem. When people make soil, air, or water dirty with litter or harmful chemicals, the natural cycles that keep an ecosystem in balance may be disrupted or poisoned. Many organisms may die. People who live where there is pollution can also become sick. Too much sickness and death upsets the balance in an ecosystem. Deforestation also harms ecosystems. When forests are cut down too fast for new trees to replace the old, all the organisms that depend on them for food and shelter must relocate or die. So they have to move to a different ecosystem or they're all just going to perish. Okay? Producers, like the trees in a forest, are important because they produce oxygen. It's what we breathe in, right? When they are destroyed, the air may become unhealthy. When people disrupt the balance in ecosystems, they harm not only other organisms, but also themselves. Let's look at that caption down there by all of that disgusting trash. Garbage not only takes up space in a landfill, but it can also harm the animals that live nearby. So that is a landfill. That is where all of your trash, my trash, and everyone's trash goes when it gets picked up by the garbage men. They throw it into a hole and then they put dirt over it. And that's where the trash goes. So it's a landfill. It's just land that has been used to house our trash. All right, so it takes up space where animals used to live and it has caused them to relocate. All right, let's look at in the field. Many endangered species in Africa, including some elephants and rhinos, are killed by poachers for their tusks and horns. Game rangers protect these special animals from poachers. A ranger's job is dangerous. Not only can the animals be aggressive, but poachers are usually armed with guns and may harm people who try to stop them. All right, so that is imbalance in an ecosystem. And I'm going to do a quick little experiment to kind of show you guys what this can look like. So, this is a plastic clear cup that I filled with some dirt just from right outside our door and some water. And you can see it's kind of murky because it hasn't settled completely. So, imagine this is a lake. So this is our lake water, and this is the ground in the lake, but it also has water in it. Water got through the dirt and is now called groundwater, okay? And so what groundwater is if you've ever seen a well, people drill into the ground, and if you drill far enough, you'll eventually hit water. In places like Arizona, in some specific spots you don't have to drill very far, but in a lot of places you have to drill very far down to eventually hit the groundwater. But what happens when people pollute lakes, so they dump chemicals or they put trash in it and they just don't take care of the environment, bad things can happen to the water in the lake and eventually to the groundwater as well. So I've got some pollution here, some different types of pollution. So it says pollution. So this one might be some chemicals. So maybe this lake is next to a factory, and the factory maybe knows or doesn't know that their chemicals are leaking into the lake. So let's see what happens. So it's in the lake. Eventually that's going to break up and it's going to get into your groundwater down here. Okay. Now this is maybe some garbage. It's the color of my garbage can, so let's see. People maybe are camping and they have some plastic that accidentally falls into the lake. This happens several times, and eventually that's going to seep down into the groundwater as well. So we've got chemicals, we've got trash. Let's say this is some waste, human waste. Okay, let's see that one. So that is eventually gonna seep down into your groundwater as well. So those are eventually gonna break up and go down into your groundwater. Now, if I lived near this lake and I wanted to dig a well because I wanted to get my own water, if I was drilling down into this ground and I wanted to get some, and I eventually hit water in the ground, what is that water going to have in it? Not good stuff, right? It's going to have chemicals, it's going to have trash and human waste. That is not something that you want to get in your water. So that is what happens. That's what can happen when we have too much pollution around, when we don't take care of the things that we do. So for instance, when you go camping, we need to make sure that we pick up everything that we brought with us so we don't disturb, nature and what was there before us. So we need to make sure, you can see it down here. It's already seeping into the groundwater if I mix it up a little bit. So I think that one was the chemicals, right? So you have chemicals that you would drink and ingest in your body that would make you sick. So that well water would make you terribly, terribly sick, and you could even die from it, depending on what the chemical is, right? So it's going to be dispersed a little bit into the water, but you don't want to drink this. This looks disgusting, right? So we need to be aware of what we are doing. And if you see some trash on the ground, pick it up so it doesn't eventually end up in your water and you don't want to drink that, or the little specks or little parts of it. So we need to make sure that we do our part in making sure that we keep the earth clean as possible. And sometimes we do all that we can, but this is still going to happen, right? Unintentionally, something blows into the water through the wind. You can't go grab it. It's all right. But we need to make sure that we are doing all that we can to make sure that our water does not end up like this. Or the air, right? This can happen with the air as well. So there's smoke that goes up into the air and little particles. And if you've seen in places like China has a lot of pollution in its air, and you can even see it. Their skies aren't really blue, they're more of a gray because there's so much stuff that's not supposed to be in their air because they have a lot of factories. And the factories send out a lot of things into the air that's not supposed to be there. So that's another way that we can show pollution. But this was an easier way for me to show you guys what can happen when pollution gets into the water. All right? Have a great day.